Well, hopefully you guys made it through quadratic functions, because now we're on to something a little bit easier. We're doing operations with polynomial expressions. Sounds like a lot. It really isn't that bad. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to find the sum or difference of polynomials, the product of polynomials. You should be able to expand a polynomial expression, find the area of an object using polynomial equations, and finally explain what to add to a polynomial in order to make it equivalent to another. So some vocabulary. A polynomial expression is an expression consisting of variables and coefficients which only employs the operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and non-negative integers. All right, couple of things. Polynomial, poly means many. So you might hear the term binomial. A binomial expression has two terms, such as ax plus b. You might hear trinomial. Okay, that might be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, notice it. Bi, two, tri, three, poly, many. Monomial would be like this. Would only be like ax. Okay, so now that you know the different types of polynomials for very specific names for different types, let's get on to adding or subtracting. So when you add or subtract terms, you may only do so. This is a review from the very beginning of the year. If they are constants, if they have the same variable, and if that variable does have an exponent, it must be the same power. In other words, you can add x squared plus 2x squared together, but you could not add x squared plus 2x cubed together because of the different exponents here and here. Okay, these both are x squared. This is x squared and x cubed. Couldn't do it. All right, so first, simplify the expression. We've got 5x squared plus 3 minus the quantity, 7x squared plus 2x minus 9. All right, so what we need to do first is we need to remember to distribute that minus or negative sign to everything inside of the parentheses that it is in front of, and then remove all the parentheses to make your life easier. So that becomes 5x squared plus 3 minus 7x squared, because we've got it to that, then we have it to that, and then we have it to that. So we distributed that negative sign throughout the expression in the parentheses. The negative 2 or the positive 2x became negative 2x, the negative 9 became positive 9. And then you can do a couple different things. You can either group the terms together or mark the like terms in the equation or highlight them. Here are the two different ways. So here I grouped them. I took my x squareds and put them together. I only had one x, so that stayed in parentheses by itself. And then I had my constants, 3 plus 9. Or in this case over here, I highlighted all of my x squareds with the yellow highlighter, my x with a blue one, and the constants with pink. Or you could go through and you could be like, okay, I'm going to circle my x squared. When you do this, make sure you include the sign to the left of it. Put a square around my x, triangle around my constants, and you could just do that. However it is you do it. You could do one line underneath, then 2, and then 3. Whatever it is you prefer. Either way, once you combine them all, you should get negative 2x squared minus 2x plus 12. Products of polynomial expressions. So this is where you're multiplying. Product means multiplication. Okay, when you multiply them together, each term of an expression is multiplied by every other term of every other polynomial expression. One way to represent this would be, so let's say you had two binomials, ax plus b times cx plus d. You would take ax times cx, ax times d. Okay, we add those together. Then we would take b times cx and b times d. And we add all of those groupings together. All right, when you have two binomials, though, you may or may not have heard this, but if you haven't yet, you will. I guarantee it. It's a term called FOIL. And what that stands for, the F is for first, the O is for outer, the I is for inner, and the L is for last. Notice what I did here. I multiplied the first term of each expression, and then I multiplied the outside terms of each expression, and then the inside terms, and then the last terms. So basically, if you remember FOIL, you should remember to, And that only works with binomials, so just keep that in mind when you're multiplying two binomials together. It's not a mathematical thing, it's just a way to remember the math that you're doing. So let's say we had to find the product of this. What I find is that drawing a box can be helpful, so I write FOIL. Okay? And then in this first box is where I would say, all right, so this is where I'm going to multiply 8x times 2x. That's my first, my outer. So that's first. My outer would be 8x times 3, and then my inner, remember the negative sign to the left of it. So negative 5x, or negative 5 times 2x, and then my last, negative 5 times 3. When you do that, you get 16x squared, 24x, negative 10x, and negative 15. And notice that, okay, it's not going to let me highlight. So notice that these both have a value of x, so we combine those to get 16x squared plus 14x minus 15. That would be your answer. Now we have some special cases of products of polynomials where you can kind of determine it a lot quicker. Like if you have x minus y squared, which essentially breaks down to x minus y times x minus y. But instead of writing that all out and doing FOIL on that, we just expand it as x squared minus 2xy plus y squared. Because what's going to happen is when you multiply these two, you'll get x squared. The two negatives will cancel out to give you the y squared. And then you'll have a negative xy and a negative xy. And when you put those two together, you get negative 2xy. Okay? X plus y squared is the same thing except everything's plus. And then if you have the exact same thing in both, and you're multiplying them by each other, you're basically only going to square the first and the last term and put a minus sign in between them. That's it. Okay? So if I asked you to rewrite the expression f plus g squared, it's the same as this, like I said. Okay? And so if we did it like this, okay, f times f, f squared. F times g, fg. Then we go to our inside terms and get fg again. Because remember, we can change the order. So it's even though it's GF, we can change it around so that it's the same. FG, and then finally G squared. And then again, notice I have an FG and an FG. And remember, if there's no coefficient, it's like having a 1. So if I have 1 FG plus 1 FG, that's 2 FG. So you can see how that formula works out. All right, so now for a kind of a real world problem. So we're making square paper cutouts for a project. We start with a square piece of paper with 8-inch sides. We need smaller squares, so we reduce its length and its width by a distance of y. It's as shown. So what is the area of the cutout? So remember, the width we would describe as 8 minus y inches, because the total side length is 8, but we're taking away y. Okay, and the length is the same thing. Area is length times width. So we would do 8 minus y times 8 minus y, which remember if we apply what we did earlier, it would give us 8 minus y quantity squared, which is 64 minus 16y plus y squared inches squared. If you wanted to change it around so that it was y squared minus 16y plus 64, you could do that too. It's not going to make it any different. But do make sure that you have this square inches after it. And because it's area, it's square inches. It's not just inches. And finally, last example. Explain what polynomial should be added to 4x squared minus 9x plus 1 to make the sum equivalent to 6x squared plus 12x. So in order to do this, what we're going to do is we're basically just going to subtract the first polynomial. So this first one here, this is polynomial number 1, from what we want it to be equivalent to. So this would be like our answer. So we take that 6x squared plus 12x, and what we're going to do is we're subtracting the whole thing. So notice I put parentheses around that. You don't necessarily have to do this extra step once you realize that you need to distribute this parentheses to everything, or that negative sign to everything inside the parentheses. And then I would draw lines so that you make sure that, okay, I have an x squared together, good. X together, good. Nothing in 1, so I'm just going to make that a plus 0. Okay, and then once we distribute that negative sign, everything becomes the opposite. And then it's just a matter of adding them. 6x squared And then minus 4x squared is 2x squared. 12x plus 9x is 21x. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. That's your answer. Simple. Easy peasy. All right, that's all I got for you guys. You have a good one. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in class. Write them down. Leave them in the comments. Yeah, that's it. Take it.